Free agency is winding down. The NFL draft is almost here. And if you're a dynasty manager, these next few weeks might be the most important trade window of the year if you're willing to take some chances and run into the burning building. On this episode, I'm continuing my conversation with Alan Seslowsky of RotoWire and SiriusXM. We're taking a deep dive on the biggest free agency movers, their impacts those moves are going to have on their old and their new teams, and what the rookie draft is about to do to your roster. That's next on Dynasty Compass. So let's sort of scoot back over to some players here, then buy, hold, sell kind of model, and then what we think about where they either came from, where they're going. Travis Etienne is kind of the next guy I have, and then what are you doing with the Jaguars that he left behind?
I mean, Etienne is in the Javonte Williams spot from last year, right? Like, he's the guy with the clear opportunity. Alvin Kamara will certainly, and in New Orleans have his share of whatever touches or remain. I mean, he's not dead, right? He wants to retire in New Orleans, so I don't think they're going to trade or cut him unless he starts to become, uncomfortable with being the backup. But as long as he understands what his adjusted role is in here, I mean, Travis Etienne is a fine pick, right? Like, these guys are year to year. So what? I mean, again, these 25 to 27-year-old running backs in that range, 24 to 27, this is the peak for them, right? If somebody is down on Travis Etienne, I think the landing spot's good, right? Like, New Orleans plays regular football how we just described playing dynasty football, always going for it. These guys will, they're never going to like tank for, Arch Manning. They're always like trading extra first round picks when they're a bottom third team to go get Chris Olave in those drafts. So I'm very bullish on Etienne if you treat him for what he is. He's like, a starting running back that you could just put him in your lineup every week. And what that leaves behind is, I mean, there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about Bhayshul Tuten. Right? I mean, I understand that Chris Rodriguez was signed there for significant money, and that, but you need a second guy, right? Like, isn't that exactly the guy who you want to be the second guy if you're bullish on someone like Bhayshul Tuten in Jacksonville? Now, I was talking to someone that is pretty close with the team, and of course, you never know what information is correct, but the way I took it was they drafted Bhayshul Tuten last year, the Jaguars regime, to be the guy. They were not expecting Travis Etienne to step up and have a big season, so that is still the case. And if you look at like some of the under the hood metric stats with Tuten, like the yards per carry stuff, like it's a little, uninspiring. It's because though, I mean, he got a lot of in close stuff, a lot of goal line stuff right there. So yeah, I mean, Tuten, I saw Tuten traded for Pierce to bring it back to some of the players we were talking about earlier, Jeff. So I don't know which side of that is the right side. I mean, Tuten, I'm bullish on him as well. I think he's probably a really good 5th round pick in redraft and dynasty. Probably hard to get him right now, right? Yep. I mean, you got him at the 203, 205, 207 last year. So I like this. It's almost like a stock split. Travis Etienne goes to a spot where he's the new 1A in a shared backfield, and Tuten has every opportunity right now to become the 1A in his backfield. So if you had both of those guys, I think you're in a good spot.
Yeah, I agree. And Etienne was certainly one of those guys that last year I was higher on than most because I still saw that the talent was there, and Tuten was kind of, I thought, the 1B sort of situation, even though a lot of folks, and even the guy you were just talking to you about who had the insider knowledge, said he was drafted to be the 1A or the 1 period. It just didn't quite seem to work out last year, but now that opportunity is there, and Etienne's still a really solid back, and he said he's in an offense where I think he's going to do quite well. But now let's move to an offense where somebody's not going to necessarily do quite well. There's Rico Dowdle, who is now a Steeler, and how do we feel about that, the rest of the Steelers, and then the Panthers he left behind?
So you don't like Dowdle, huh?
Not really.
Well, let's go into that because I have a little bit more optimism about that. I want to hear your reason first because, again, I love the way you talk about dynasty football. When you and I had a drink together in Canton, Ohio, I mean, yeah, we exchanged pleasantries where you're from there, but immediately, I don't know. That's why I like your show, Jeff, is because the way you think about these players is a little different than I do. And I'm always open to the other side. By the way, did I get much more handsome? I put my HD camera back on?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it is stunning. I hope everyone is watching this on YouTube. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, go to YouTube and you will see exactly how luminously handsome my guest is. He is outside.
My Sony camera overheated. There's a setting that you could change to make that doesn't happen. I probably have to readjust that. But anyway, let me hear your Dowdle stuff. Why you don't think it's going to go well for him?
I'm not a fan of that offense at all. Now I realize that Arthur Smith is not there anymore, so we may be done seeing the fifth tight end catching touchdown passes. But this offense for Pittsburgh just doesn't seem to have the pieces in place to really go much of anywhere. They don't really have a quarterback at the moment, and I'm not sure there's a plan B, really, if it is not Aaron Rodgers, at least a plan B that dynasty managers can feel comfortable about with that offense. Now, I was a little down on Dowdle in some of his other roles and situations. I thought that I still think that couple of week stretch he had where he was absolutely bonkers had a lot more to do with the defenses that he was playing in the game that unfolded than it did necessarily his talent or what we could expect otherwise. And I'm not saying he's I'm not saying he's an untalented player. He's very talented. Don't get me wrong there. But I think that we tend to look at him as the highlight reels more than we do the rest of it. And then looking at this offense, unless there is something revolutionary that's going to happen, I just see them continuing to kind of grind out 16 to 19 points. And if Dowdle's the one who lands in the end zone, great. But Darnell Washington may be the guy that lands in the end zone, in which case, Dowdle just gives you that 2-yard carry at 1st and goal from the 3 and then doesn't see the ball again.
Yeah, I think that we're in a similar spot for our outlook, but our expectations are probably a little bit different. Like I was expecting Dowdle, if he's on my roster, like he was basically dead for Dynasty after the Panthers let him go. He wasn't tradable. You couldn't even use him as a throw-in. You'd get no credit for him in trades. And now he's actually an asset that if you make a trade, I'm not saying like you're going to trade for or trade Dowdle away, but you'll get credit for him in the trade. So just the fact that he is the starting running back on an NFL team, and I think we could safely project 12 touches a week for him, and that would be like, yeah, okay, it's probably more, right? So I think that those are currency, right? Just like draft capital is currency. So I'm optimistic on Dowdle in a sense where he has running back touches in his pocket. And as we know that in these leagues that running backs, you're never going to be able to buy Devon Achane in season unless you're giving up a major asset. Right. But someone like Dowdle, he's basically a year-to-year proposition. I don't care what the contract says on a team that, look, I mean, any given week, he can have 60 yards and a touchdown. I think that's worth something. So I was more saying that I'm optimistic that from where he was before free agency to now. But I think that your actual player take on this is probably sobering and realistic.
Yeah, but there's also nothing wrong with a running back that gets you 10 to 12 fantasy points a game as long as he's not your top running back. If he's your RB2 or your RB3 or your flex guy, Dowdle's a solid one for that. If he's who you're relying on to carry your running back room, okay, be prepared for a rocky season.
Yeah. And then, I know that, so if Dowdle gone, then we're over to the Panthers, right? That's the natural thing, like these things, like with one goes up, one must go down and the other way, that opens things up over there. So now Chuba Hubbard back from the dead, right? Because he went from being like a coveted fantasy asset in redraft last year to now the 1B. And then he had some other pop-up games. Looks like he's back in the driver's seat to lead a committee. Who knows what Jonathan Brooks, the good-looking player from a couple of years ago, who's just had injury after injury. And then, they also have, Trevor Etienne, who they drafted late there, who's on the roster. Again, I have to make some decisions on some of these shorter bench leagues if I'm going to keep him. So what are you doing with the Panthers background, Jeff? Because that's an actual problem. My Dowdle teams are fine. I know I'm going to be able to start Rico Dowdle. The upside is limited, but it's the Panther stuff that has my dynasty rosters in chaos right now.
Mine, not so much, because I've been avoiding that offense for the last couple of years. By and large, it just has not been terribly productive. But in these sort of deeper leagues, I think you do need to pay attention to them. And I think you're spot on with folks like Hubbard and Trevor Etienne. These are some cheap pickups right now, because I don't think anyone's expectations for this is very high. But somebody has to put up numbers there. And again, if you're looking for an RB2, RB3 kind of position on your lineup, there's always something to be said about bad offenses. They still put up some numbers. They're not going to win you leagues necessarily, but they're also going to be much more solid flex plays than some random fourth receiver somewhere else. And so, to me, that's an offense to invest in. It is, I think, potentially ascending. We will see Bryce Young starting to play a little more like we were hoping he would when he came out of school. Cam Ward is as well, but that's in a different crummy offense. We can talk about them here in a little bit. Carolina, I think, is a team to target. I just don't know that I would send a whole lot for it, but I also don't know that dynasty managers would be looking for a lot to get out of a Chuba Hubbard or a Trevor Etienne.
Yeah, it feels like an on-the-clock pick, right? Like if you're on the clock and somebody for some reason likes the 204, whatever player's there, and you're like, you know what? Let me trade it away. The guy's got Chuba Hubbard on his roster. He's a starting running back this year. So those are the type of OTC trades that you see all the time.
Yeah. Would you make that trade if, one of these running backs in the current class, like a Jadarian Price, was on the board at that point? Would you take the younger player, or would you go for Hubbard with that pick?
I expect someone like Price to go in the first round of a lot of rookie drafts, but let's just say hypothetically that's the situation we're at.
Yeah.
And Price right now is like, say, on, just on the Jets, right? Let's say the Jets take him because they're anticipating they won't be able to hold Breece Hall next year, and they still have Braylon Allen and Chuba. In my mindset, I'm taking Chuba Hubbard, right? Because Chuba Hubbard is going to produce right now for my fantasy team. Now, again, I know you say rebuild versus that, but things change quickly, right? So I probably would take Hubbard in that specific situation. But again, Price probably ends up going a little bit earlier. But yeah, no, that's a great hypothetical, because I could say that now, but let's see what happens when I'm on the clock if I actually make that trade.
And even if you're a rebuilder, this is a piece you could trade later if you needed to. Just looking downstream a little bit, if you are rebuilding, you have this sort of random pick that you don't feel great about who's on the board, but perhaps somebody else does. You trade for someone like a Chuba Hubbard. If it's not working, but Chuba Hubbard is doing fine, but the rest of your team's not working out very well, then you can always move him later for something down the road. But if you're drafting and you pick a guy who's going to be 2 or 3 years removed from a starter's job, which means he's probably never going to get it, someone else will come along who's a shinier object than that one, then I'd go for some production now, because at the very least you can trade production now. Trading production later is a lot harder to do unless you're a contender.
Well said.
I said. So we talked about Waddle, Jaylen Waddle going to Denver. One player we did not talk about, although you mentioned his name earlier, is Courtland Sutton. What are we doing with Sutton with Waddle now showing up in Denver?
Yeah, there's nothing you could do. Nobody wants him right now. This is the worst time to trade Courtland Sutton, right? He's in the news where they just got a better, where they got a perceived upgrade player. So there's nothing you could do. Courtland Sutton, he is what he is. He's on your roster. If somebody, I can't imagine anyone would want to give, like, if someone's like, oh, I'll give you a 3rd round rookie pick for him, like, just keep him, right? Like, if he's a player that you could put in your lineup, in your second flex spot, if he's a player that, like, when you have injuries that you could start him, the buy price and the sell price don't match up, so what else is there really to do, right? A player like Sutton, he fits into that vast middle, and you need to find a buyer that's going to have the buy price. Are you getting rid of Courtland Sutton for the 301? No, right? Yeah, exactly. These are guys that still have a chance for top 24 production in 2026.
Yeah, he's still a solid receiver. He's still, if Nix again is near the top of the league in pass attempts, they're not all going to Waddle, and they're not all going to Franklin either, and they're not all going to the tight ends. There's going to be stuff available for someone like Courtland Sutton, and he's going to be able to deliver when he gets that opportunity. Yep. We also mentioned Achane briefly. He's not someone you're going to be able to trade for probably, but what would you be willing to part with him for? Watching that offense in Miami, that whole team just seemed to kind of disintegrate in front of our eyes.
Oh, I made the worst Achane trade ever last offseason. Now, think about where we were when I tell you this Achane trade. Okay, I traded away pre-trade for George Pickens, right? So he was still on the Steelers. Okay. So I traded away Pickens and Achane for Justin Jefferson, right? Turned out to be a disaster. But think about where we were. Yeah. Pickens ended up being a top 12 receiver. Nobody wanted him when he was on the Steelers. And Achane, they were talking about how he had a calf injury again. I was like, oh, and I get wide receiver 1 or 2 in Dynasty for that? Oh, man, did that really – I mean, no one in that league lets me forget about that trade. So – yeah, I mean, Devon Achane, his value's gone down since the team has sort of gutted itself. It would be interesting if like a team like Seattle, Jeff, right? Yep. Can Seattle, trade? Would they trade? I had this discussion with some of our guys at RotoWire. Why would Seattle trade pick 32 for Devon Achane, right? Like you need him now, right? Is that an overpay? Do you want to pay? You're going to have to pay him next year, but just do it. Like you're in this like short window where you can actually win Super Bowls. And where would we put Devon Achane if he was on Seattle, the starting running back on Seattle? I mean, right now, I mean, you can get in on him because he's had a perceived downgrade. He's no longer like RB 4 or 5. Yeah, I've seen him fall down to below Kenneth Walker, right? Like, just because of that perceived. But he's a good player, a little bit undersized, but he's a game breaker. So, yeah, I think the window's open, but when it's not buy low, it's buy at a fair price.
Yeah. I actually still have him at RB4. I still see the talent there, even in that offense. And we said we don't know what's going to happen in Miami. He's certainly the sort of guy I think that can land somewhere else if Miami sees that as an opportunity to really stockpile some draft capital or some other assets. And speaking of Seattle, when we talked about Walker, we didn't go back around to Seattle. We got Emmanuel Wilson going there. We've got an injured Zach Charbonnet, and we've got the generational talent George Halani. What are we doing with that backfield other than waiting for Achane to show up?
The Seattle backfield right now is it's ugly as far as like name brand players, but we've seen guys like George Halani pop a little bit, and could be interesting in the next year. And Emmanuel Wilson, who had some really good games in Green Bay. I mean, he's going to be a September hero in redraft, right? Like he'll be available in the 7th through 12th round, depending on, how the offseason goes in redraft. And if you have him on your roster, I mean, that's a running back you could play right away until you figure out the other positions right there. So anything short of a trade, which again, I really hope Seattle trades for Achane. I think that would be a cool thing to do. Again, you don't have to win every trade as far as value as you give, when I was talking to, again, some of our guys, they think that was like an insane proposition that I put forward. No one's going to pay a first round pick for Achane. I mean, why not? So, yeah, those other guys, I mean, they're probably startable in the deepest of degenerate dynasty leagues, but it's almost like a lock if they don't trade for someone that they'll probably grab, one of those running backs at pick 64. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think that'd be about right. Yeah, I have a feeling there'll be a fair number of them available at that point in the NFL draft. I get a sense that the NFL is not going to move on most of these backs until round 3. So if you're at the end of round 2, you're practically around 3. You could be the first. You have your choice of everybody not named Jeremiyah Love. Is my guess is what will happen at pick 62.
Or Seattle, a lot of teams want to get back into that first round to take like a quarterback at pick 32. They could trade back 10, 15, 20 spots and take get some extra picks with that, and then take, whoever their RB2 is somewhere in the middle of the second round.
Yeah, it's also something important to remember is that just because the players on the board are where they are now and doing the roles they are now doesn't mean that they still will be doing that on May 1st.
Yep.
When we get through the draft. Let's talk about a guy who is in limbo but still with a team. That's AJ Brown. He's in Philadelphia. The incessant rumors that he's being traded doesn't seem to be traded. We'll probably get to the point where we decide he's not being traded and then wake up one morning and he's been traded. Is now a time to act on him? Do you want to buy him? Do you want to sell him?
Yes.
Or do you want to wait and see?
This is the run into the burning building player of this year, right? Yeah. Like nobody wants AJ Brown. He can't even get traded. He's perceived as as a problem player, but we also know that he's probably a top 20 fantasy wide receiver in 2026. Certainly has a couple of, a few good years left. There's been some rumors about degenerative knee issues. But yeah, no, this is exactly the player that I think that if you're sitting at the end of your rookie draft and you don't want to make one of those picks at 108 through 112, like I would offer that pick for AJ Brown. Now, is it an overpay? Sure. But man, if there's teams, Jeff, where I've just been struggling to find anyone that I could start confidently every week in that wide receiver 3 spot, this is the perfect player to buy for those picks that, if you don't really want to make it OTC.
Yeah, it's a great point there, Alan, that, we often look at someone like A.J. Brown as being the guy you'd have as your wide receiver 1 or maybe your 2. And he's a gamble at those, but man, as a wide receiver 3 on your team who could be the 1 or 2 several weeks, I think that would be, an outstanding kind of pickup. He's got the talent wherever he lands, unless he lands – even if he lands on the crummiest offense imaginable, he's still going to be able to put up some numbers. And if you value him in your mind appropriately and expect what you want, expect a more realistic kind of middle of the bell curve kind of season from him, and he gives you something better than that, outstanding. If you expect something better than that and he gives you something in the middle, you're going to be very disappointed in any move you make for him or whether you've kept him or not. So I think expectations need to shift a little bit with some of these kind of veteran players, but I'm with you. I mean, this is if you've got a skittish manager with A.J. Brown is looking to offload him, try to get him. I think he's definitely worth that pickup.
Quick answer: Jaylen, Waddle, or AJ Brown in Dynasty?
I would go with Waddle, I think.
Is that an age take, or is that what is that?
No. Well, it's sort of. I mean, that certainly played into it. I mean, you watch my little wheels turning. There might have been some smoke coming out of my ears. I was thinking about that. There's that. I think that, we've got an ascendant offense in Denver. We know where Waddle is. We know the role he's been brought in to do. Brown, there's a little bit more uncertainty there, and there's a little bit of head case stuff with AJ Brown that's concerning. He's not certainly on a knucklehead level like a Rashee Rice kind of person. I hope he never gets anywhere near that, but there's still that little concern I have that if things aren't going right, Brown may not be giving you the 100% that you're looking for in that situation, and I worry. He's
more in the Stephon Diggs than he is Antonio Brown, is what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, capable of superstardom and a huge week anytime, and also capable of just walking off the field one morning.
Our diva scale. Diva scale,
exactly. That's a great way of looking at it. Not knucklehead, diva scale. There's definitely there's a little bit there, and so that is a slight tip toward Waddle. I'm happy with either of them. Waddle, though, to me is more of who I would want. If I were looking for that wide receiver 2 kind of role, I'd prefer Waddle to Brown. If it's 3, I'd probably rather pay what I need to pay for Brown than pay what I would need to pay for Waddle to get that. Depends on what I need him for.
Co-sign on all those.
Okay, very good. How about we talked a little bit about Mike Evans earlier, another kind of one of these aging veteran pieces, but who was rolling along on 1,000-yard seasons on a pretty good offense till last season. The injury came along. He's back on a pretty good offense, quite possibly going to be a lead receiver in a team that's been struggling for that. How are we feeling about buying him in Dynasty? And then how about the other Niners and Buccaneers that are affected by this move?
Yeah, this one's pretty easy. I think that I'm treating Mike Evans very similarly to how I treated Devontae Adams last year, right? I'm buying him as a 1-year mercenary producer, and if I get an extra year out of him, great. If things don't go my way and he's producing how he always has, Mike Evans hasn't looked like he's slowed down to me. Sure, the injury, dings have happened here and there. You already know, but you know what you're buying.
Yeah, exactly. I know that.
Yeah, you can get out. So it's like one of those guys where I'm very comfortable paying, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112 for, and I'm totally okay taking a late second for him if my team doesn't go out. I think that's like the easiest thing to do. I mean, he's an easy buy because he produces and he's old and he's perceived as a 1-year bet, even though it'll probably be 2 years. As far as the residual Niners stuff, I mean, with what's it called? Ricky Pearsall. Yeah. I mean, this probably helps him, right? Doesn't have to be forced into that alpha role. where he could still get some downfield stuff. Maybe he could be like their Alec Pierce from the last couple of years ago. So we probably overvalued Pearsall a little bit last year in redraft, right? We saw what he was. We saw the upside in the early games. And then obviously injuries took most of his season away.
Again.
So I like this. Like, this is the debate we always have in fantasy football: is adding the other wide receiver good for the other guy because it loosens him up, or is it bad because it takes away targets, right? And with Kittle out for, I'm going to say, at least till Thanksgiving, right? So you have the first 2 months, 3 months of the season. I think that this is good for all Niners. This is great for Brock Purdy, right? I mean, this is one of Mike Evans' game perfectly lines up with what Purdy does best. Scrambles a little bit, could throw downfield. That's a win-win everywhere. As far as like what it does with the Buccaneers, this cleans everything up over there as well. Emeka Egbuka started out the year as, probably, I think I saw him go as Dynasty wide receiver 5 in a lot of rankings, as he was crushing based on touchdowns in those first few weeks. And then we saw him slide right there. I think he was probably hurt a little bit.
Yeah,
but
I think so
man,
too.
Egbuka is probably back. It helps his value, his trade value, his Dynasty startup value. And then, it cleans the way for Godwin to be one of these older producers, and certainly Jalen McMillan, who we've seen pop in the NFL already. And then, like I said, it's with Baker Mayfield. If he's healthier this year too, it probably, I'm a little more worried about him with these other guys than, Mike Evans was like a sure thing. But overall, I just think it's one of those stock splits. I used that term earlier where Evans goes here, it helps them. It cleans up the rest of the passing tree for the Buccaneers. Win-win all around for this one.
We talked a little bit about the Bears earlier in our conversation about Luther Burden, but one of the things that is opening things up for Burden is G.J. Moore going over to Buffalo, changing up the environment over there, giving Josh Allen a reliable receiver who's not named Khalil Shakir. I once described last season their wide receiving room as a grandfather clock, a toaster, 2 amusement park turnstiles, and Khalil Shakir. So that is an improvement over there. But how are we feeling about Moore in Buffalo? And we've talked about the Chicago Bears. We need to go back over them. But what are we doing with Shakir? And I don't know that we would be doing anything with the other receivers in Buffalo. But if you are, what would that be?
I mean, this is the best you could have hoped for if you had DJ Moore on your Dynasty roster, right? I mean, you're not like pumped that DJ Moore is there was a time where he was a perennial top 12 option going in the third and sometimes second round of redraft. But look, the one thing that the Buffalo Bills were often critiqued for, rightfully so, was they didn't bring in a alpha wide receiver that Josh Allen could rely on since Stephon Diggs has been gone. Now, it's not like they haven't tried. They brought in Dalton Kincaid, who was the best pass catcher on the board when they drafted, right? There was no wide receivers they thought were better. And they brought in Amari Cooper, who was having a couple good games before he was brought in. So they thought they could, moneyball it last year. It didn't work out. So like I just said in Dynasty, like, hey, if you're buying Mike Evans in Dynasty, if you're buying these older wide receivers in Dynasty, that's kind of what the Buffalo Bills did. Okay, DJ Moore's in his super late peak. He's available. We're going to have to overpay a little bit, but we finally give Josh Allen another weapon. So, DJ Moore's got to be a top 35 wide receiver in the Dynasty rankings. And I'm assuming that and he'll probably end up being a good bargain if he does have some built-in chemistry with Josh Allen. So bullish, but I don't know of anyone that. It's funny, like a lot of times, like with Waddle, I'm seeing him traded now. I haven't seen anyone really trade for DJ Moore, right? It's like, people they still have that stink on him, and they're not certain that he's good anymore.
Yeah, I mean, he was not the best fit for the offense there in Chicago, and I don't know if it's still the sort of that diva factor kind of situation going, but there's some body language that he had last season that was a bit concerning. But he wasn't with Josh Allen either last season, so to me, he's worth that gamble. Another guy who really, not necessarily another guy, but a guy who really ascended, kind of came out of nowhere last season was Wan'Dale Robinson. As part of that offense in New York. Now he is at Tennessee, which I don't think we would say is anywhere near as good or interesting an offense as New York. But what do we think about Robinson? And what do we think about the Giants and the other Titans?
Yeah, I mean, Wan'Dale was like a top 12, 15-ish wide receiver last year. He's back with Brian Dable. You talked about, offensive, let's look at the offensive coordinators. Let's look at the systems. Let's look at the coaches. This is the one that pairs up the most.
Yeah.
Cam Ward was coming on last year. This certainly is a slight downgrade in value for Chimere DK, but man, with Calvin Ridley kind of looking washed up here, man, I'm in on Wan'Dale Robinson. I think he's going to be a good pick because he's not going to cost. I'm assuming in redraft he's somewhere between a 7th and 10th round pick, and in Dynasty, he's a player that is acquirable, right? Like I have him in that league that we're talking. I'm thrilled to have him. Is like to throw him in there. I'll take with the good with the bad. He's a good player. He was a second round draft capital player. Wan'Dale Robinson, there's a reason to be bullish, but he doesn't have that name appeal, and the Tennessee Titans aren't viewed as a situation that's like a clear upgrade. I think it's a neutral move for Wan'Dale, but isn't that good? Like Wan'Dale, like I said, was a highly ranked PPR receiver last year. Yeah,
I'm with you. I don't see it as a clear upgrade, but it's not the vast downgrade either. And you make the great point. That you've got the same, basically the coaching staff who had him before and made him the star now has him again with a quarterback that has got some similar tendencies and is similarly ascending. And there's really not a lot of competition for those targets. DK and AMN are fine, but they're never meant to be the wide receiver ones of any NFL team, I don't believe. And now they're kind of in more appropriate roles, I think, for them, with Robinson being, more the alpha. And I agree with you that Ridley is washed.
Yeah, and maybe they'll take a wide receiver at pick, what are they at, 4 or 5, something like that? They have 4, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so maybe they'll take a receiver and you'll have a high upside rookie there, but I don't think that really affects what Wan'Dale does, unless they took Mekhi Lemon at 4, which it doesn't seem like that's what any of the professional mockers have. You're going to have someone that complements him rather than takes away from him.
Yeah. I almost think if Tennessee's going to go receiver in first round, that they could probably trade down a bit, still get the same guy and pick up some extra draft capital. Yeah. Somebody who might be in love with somebody else, including, Jeremiyah Love, who could go considerably that high.
Are you buying into that? The Tennessee and the Giants both want Love?
I'm buying certainly that. I'm buying that the Giants want him. I don't know that they're going to spend what they need to spend to get that because of the other needs that they have. And for Tennessee, it's kind of like, well, how electric do you think he's going to be? Certainly, the backs they've got there aren't terribly exciting. It's hard to know exactly what Tennessee's overall plan is, and it may be just kind of what happens, what they see when they get on the clock. I think it's going to have to play into that for Tennessee as to whether they want to take a shot at Love or address some other concerns. That's what the draft makes it so much fun, though, right? All these mock drafts are wrong because there's going to be trades we don't see, and there's going to be zigs when we expect zags, and there's going to be teams that are really, really good at hiding what they're really trying to accomplish. It surprises us on draft night. That's what we love about it, I think. That's one of the most exciting nights of the year. It's not even so much where everyone goes, it's just how they get to where they go. It's always fun, I think.
Yep, it seems like the Jets are going to be in a pole position to trade if Tennessee and the Giants both want Jeremiyah Love. Who wants him, right? Yep. Who wants him? Come get him.
Yep. Shift over to tight ends real quickly. Isaiah Likely has now moved on to New York, and that leaves Mark Andrews in the wake there in Baltimore, and then this sort of unknown in David Njoku, who's also been tied in the rumor mill to Baltimore. What are we doing on tight end with any of these guys?
Yeah, Likely's a little bit, seems he's aggressively ranked in the Dynasty rankings, anywhere from tight end 9 to 11. But what do we know? You're never going to be able to get that actual price in a Dynasty trade because outside of the top 3, 4, maybe 5 or 6 tight ends, if you're lucky, all these guys are basically, whoever scores the 10 touchdown year is going to be tight end 6, right? Like whoever's ranked is, if Hunter Henry has the 11 touchdown season, he's going to be tight end 7 this year. So, even though I wouldn't pay attention too much to the rankings. If you're a follow the money player, I generally am. But Isaiah Likely, there's going to be mass competition. They re-signed a lot of those players that just kind of get in the way for fantasy. The Darius Slaytons, Isaiah Hodgins types. So, Isaiah Likely is a screaming sell. But I don't know anyone that's going to give you anything close to what the value are in the rankings. And it's not worth selling, in my opinion, for like these, the 209, because what if he does pop? He is athletic. They did pay him. They did bring him in proactively.
Yep.
So he's a hold until he does something. And I mean, last year I saw Rondé Gatson on the Chargers get traded for first round picks after a couple big games. There was some optimism. Not saying that's going to happen unless anything outside of a super premium league where you start 2 tight ends, but Isaiah Likely's a hold until something happens, because you're never going to realize the value of where he's ranked.
Yeah, I think you make a big point about 2 tight end leagues, because to me, when I look past, I'm looking down my dynasty rankings, when I get past, I've got Gadsden at 8, Kincaid at 9, I've got Kyle Pitts at 10, and then I could arguably put any of the next 15 in any order and be able to defend that, because they're all kind of lumped into this touchdown dependent, role dependent, what are we going to see kind of a situation. What concerns me about Likely, and I do have him fairly high, I have him at 12, is that Baltimore could have kept him and could have made the put the deal in place to keep him, and instead did not do that. And that suggests something to me, that there may be a ceiling that we haven't seen that perhaps they have, or maybe they just thought Likely was going to fetch too much money and want to spend it on him when they could get Andrews for a little cheaper than that. But Likely, to me, had that multi-year arc that Andrews probably doesn't have, and Baltimore passed on it anyway. Does that bother you at all, or is it just me thinking too much about the situation? It
sounds like Harbaugh knew he was going to be out, right? And he said, look, if they're not going to give you the deal, just I'll give it to you wherever I go. I'll bring you with me, hang loose there. So yeah, he probably didn't want to sign there.
Yep.
I mean, it hasn't happened for him yet. So I'm not overly worried about that. But it just, outside of a few games, Isaiah Likely hasn't been a great player, someone that we could start confidently. So I understand his ranking. It's just that you're never going to realize that price in a trade unless something happens in season.
How about someone like a Chig Okonkwo, who had probably the most badass picture I've seen of anybody this offseason there in Japan, in his full Japanese warlord kimono and sword in front of the temple. I'm like, man, I should show up to my next draft looking like that. That would be really awesome.
Yeah.
Other than that swag, how are we feeling about Okonkwo now in Washington? What does that do to folks like Ben Sinnott and Gunnar Helm?
Rest in peace to those 2 other guys. Actually, Gunnar Helm's an interesting guy, but you're never in. You said you play in some best ball leagues. Yeah, that's like a great Gunnar Helm spot. But
yes,
Chig Okonkwo, tight end 21 in the consensus dynasty rankings. I mean, think about some of the players that are above him. I mean, we've seen players come to this spot and really flourish. The Zach Ertz types would be the latest one. Chig is always a good player that we always liked, and the ranking is appropriate. But, you're seeing players like Terrence Ferguson, TJ Hawkinson, even AJ Barner ranked above him. Mason Taylor, who didn't do anything on the Jets team. We still don't even know, I guess Geno Smith is the quarterback for this year. We don't know what the long-term future is. So Chig Okonkwo is one of those players where, like, if you have him, like, he's startable, right? Like, he's inside that cut line of startable tight ends, and there's that vast, we talk about it all the time, from tight end like 8 to like 30.
Yeah,
it's whoever scores the touchdown that week, and Okonkwo is in a great spot. He's one of the sneaky winners of free agency. He's on a good team, good offense, he's still athletic, and the competition for tight end routes and targets is, Ben Sinnott doesn't look like it's going to work out. It could, right? We always see tight ends break out a little bit later sometimes. So I like that Okonkwo, and I love that you highlighted him here. Again, if he's one of these players that you can include in the deal, if you've been rolling out like Kate Otten, or if you have Jake Tonges this year, and you're not, or George Kittle, and you're not that confident in starting Tonges, Okonkwo is a very good target that you can get in maybe a larger deal.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he to me is not someone I would necessarily target as my tight end 1. But if I'm looking for a tight end 2 or someone who could fill in, to me, he's it. I don't know that I want to pay a lot for that, but he's also one of those sort of sneaky guys that could very easily be, a tight end 6, tight end 5, fantasy tight end 5 kind of guy if he's scoring those touchdowns, if he's getting those kind of Zach Ertz looks in the end zone, and then doing some of the other stuff that he's capable of. But as it is with tight ends, once you get past the truly elite guys, it's very much crapshoot. And so don't overpay for these kinds of players. But I love the idea of as part of a larger trade for bigger pieces, seeing if you can get Chig thrown in there, because that's a huge value add.
Yep, good call.
Last little group of guys to talk about. These are the folks who haven't landed yet, at least as of this morning. We're recording this on Sunday morning. This is Brandon Aiyuk, Tyreek Hill, Deebo Samuel, and Juwan Jennings that are all sort of in limbo. Are these sneaky smart ads, or are you running away from these guys?
No, all good ads. These are, again, we've talked about it a couple times. Run into the burning building. Aiyuk, yes. Tyreek Hill, yes. Deebo Samuel. Again, it's depending on your needs. And Juwan Jennings, he could end up being a good player. But Aiyuk and Hill, I still feel like have top 12 weekly upside, meaning like if they get the chance and the right offense, so easy to see it. So there's going to be dynasty managers that just want those guys off their roster. Would you trade Kenny Gainwell for Tyreek Hill? Would you do that trade?
Yes.
Right. So, and I think that's the type of trade that you can look to make, right? So,
especially Gainwell coming off that big season. And then, even if it seems unlikely that Tyreek Hill could land in Kansas City, Tyreek Hill could still land in Kansas City. I mean, there's a history there. There's a relationship with Patrick Mahomes, and there's a team that's desperate to get another Super Bowl in while the window's open, and Tyreek Hill is a difference-making kind of player, at least on a several-week-a-year basis, and that's sometimes all you need.
I still believe in the upside of Brandon Aiyuk. It could not work out, but look, there's been some positive news over the last couple months with David Montgomery. He's going to be the starting running back on Houston. Would you trade him away for Brandon Aiyuk, or is that just, you don't have the confidence in that particular player?
I would probably make that trade because I don't know that I see a lot. I don't know that I see Montgomery as a long-term solution in Houston. Aiyuk is a long-term solution somewhere at some point. And
New England.
I would go with Aiyuk over Montgomery. If I were trying to win now, probably not. If I'm a win now team, I'm going to stick with Montgomery because I know what that offense does in Houston. And if he's healthy, I know what he can do, and that seems like a reasonably good fit to me. If I'm a Woody Marks truther, I'm really upset about that, and I might be that, and so I might be upset about that. But it's not going to mean I won't pick up Montgomery because that offense is going to get better.
Yeah, I think those are good takes on those players. Like you and I seem to be optimistic and run into the burning building, whereas others just, they're going to need to see Tyreek Hill land first.
Yeah.
Like if Tyreek Hill lands in Cleveland, I'll still be interested, but there's going to be teams that are just like, I'm completely out.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you wait, you get certainty, but you either pay for that certainty or you don't get paid for that certainty. You have to be willing to be wrong sometimes spectacularly so, Justin Jefferson for, those guys you traded him for.
Pickens and Achane.
I mean, it seemed right at the time, but it didn't work out. Dude, that year hasn't worked out yet. It might.
I put that poll on Twitter when I did it. I got, I think about 700 or 800 respondents. I have to look for it. It was on my old account that got hacked. Naturally. And it was 94 to 6 in my favor.
Yeah.
All right. If you did it now, it would be the other way, 94-6.
Yeah, it's I had some of the best advice I ever got from somebody was you never want to lose alone, but it's okay to win alone.
Yeah,
so you're going to be that 6%. Well, you got it that time, but man, 6% is not the place to be otherwise.
You got it right.
So we've talked, of course, about a whole bunch of players. We've got this rookie draft coming up in the NFL. Well, the NFL draft, they don't call it a rookie draft. We call ours rookie drafts. Do we have some guys right now who are looking pretty good that you're thinking these are prime candidates to get kneecapped by some incoming rookie?
Yeah, are you talking? Okay, veteran players that can get
veteran players where it's looking like they're in a good situation now that are just primed to get their knees cut out from under them.
I mean, Cam Scatterbo, right? Isn't it the obvious one? If the Giants make a move for Jeremiyah Love, Cam Scatterbo was a player everybody liked. He was going in the third round of some early underdog drafts. That is the one, right? I mean, that is the one wherever Jeremiyah Love goes, rest in peace to whoever running backs are there. I mean, if Tennessee makes the move, I mean, Pollard, and not that we were over optimistic on Pollard and Tajay Spears, but that's the problem. Now, if somehow there was, look, it's unlikely at this point. Kansas City already paid Ken Walker, but imagine that's the best player on the board when they draft. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
Could
yeah, exactly.
So I think he's the only one that could really take out a bunch of players, right? The other receivers, they're complementary pieces. Like, let me give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
If the Dallas Cowboys are on the clock at 12
Mm-hmm.
and they draft Mekhi Lemon, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got George Pickens that was franchise tag. CD Lamb is still there. So is Lemon going to hurt those guys, or does that mean the dynasty drafters are going to be out on Lemon because you have those other two guys there? If you remember, CD Lamb was pushed to wide receiver 3 in his rookie class because Amari Cooper's was perceived to blocking him.
Right.
JSN, who's now wide receiver 1, 2, 3, or 4 on your board, he was perceived as a terrible landing spot because Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. Things change. So it's more about, like, what do we think about that rookie? Mm-hmm. I mean, Lemon to the Cowboys, I think, would be the most interesting debate in Dynasty, because you're going to have people that are on the side that you just asked about. Does that mean the death of CD Lamb or George Pickens, or does that mean Mekhi Lemon becomes, almost undraftable in the top 4 or 5 picks in your Dynasty rookie draft? So I think those guys in those early picks are the most interesting storylines to develop. Also, Ty Simpson, where he goes as a quarterback, will be interesting, because if he's a first round pick, is he an instant starter? Is he going to push a bridge starter out of the way? So I think guys like that. Other than that, I don't think in this particular draft class, outside of Love, Lemon, or the Cowboys receiver, whoever that ends up being, and a first round quarterback, we're going to see much carnage to the veterans.
Yeah, this doesn't seem like that class is full of generational talents. It's going to push people around. And I if Lemon ends up in Dallas, and not just because I'm a Cowboys fan, but I would be all over that, because you just franchised one of your receivers. That suggests that, as I recall, the NFL pay schedule for when you franchise the guy the second time is pretty punitive. So I could see that as being the if you're going to replace one of them, you probably replace the one you just franchised, not the other one. And so that, to me, would be a sign that Lemon would be the number 2 and Pickens would be moving on after the season. So to me, he would be worth it if someone is not in on Lemon because he's going to be the 3rd wide receiver somewhere. I'll take him. I'll take that chance. I got the patience.
I'm with you.
So, all right, you and I, we've talked about it a couple times. We're in a league together. You talked about trading away your first round pick. So you have the 207 is your first shot today at a draft pick absent a trade. I've got 104 and 204. Are you looking to move up? Are you looking to move out? I'm not trying to do a trade right now. I'm just curious as to kind of looking at this class and knowing where you are in that league. What's the thought process as a contender whose first draft choice is deep into that second round? This is a 10-team league, so this is really the equivalent of the 205 that we're talking about, 207.
Right. So we're in like the pick. Let's see, 205, 207 is, let's see, so 10, so it's 7. So it's about pick 17.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you're looking at, I probably will not make that pick, right? If I'm forced to, I'll take a quarterback, right? Like, if they're even there, like a quarterback that goes in like the 4th round, in this particular format, right? Like a Nussmeier or someone like that. But I would assume that he would get picked even ahead of that. But I'll play the format here. We start 2 tight ends. We start 5 receivers. So I won't pick a running back, because normally, and that's the range where you're taking running backs, right? Like, you just want, like, I don't care. The guy's on a depth chart. I'm into 207. Or in my cases, you just take them. So I'll probably try to look to use that. Either give me a 27 third for it if I don't want to make the pick at all. So, or I'll target one of those like day 3 quarterbacks that, maybe he'll get a couple starts and then, I'll have some upside to flip him. How about you? What are you doing with your picks?
Well, I'm doing whatever I can. There isn't the quarterback really. I don't think Mendoza falls to 104, and I'm not going to try to move up for him. So this is not the year I'm going to be able to do quarterbacks.
He might go 101 in our draft. No?
He may go 101. I expect that he actually would, unless the person holding that pick has their self set at quarterback. And my guess is, if they were set at quarterback, they would not have the number 1 overall pick in that draft. I don't think they got it by trade. Yeah,
and there's no place cheaper to get quarterbacks than in rookie drafts and in startup drafts. In trades, they're just too damn expensive.
Yeah, especially in a league where you start 4 of them.
Right.
That makes them extraordinarily expensive. I am hopeful, if I had to take them as they were, I would get one of those receivers at 104. I might look to move down, but I don't know that. The other issue with this league, of course, Alan, as you know, is it's all industry insiders. So there's not a lot of moving that we're really able to do in a league like that. I've had people ask me, said, man, you must be in these cool leagues with all these guys. There must be some really cool stuff that you guys do. Great trades. Like, it's boring as hell. Nobody does anything. We just set our lineups and go. It's like we put our armies on the field and let them hit each other, and that's that. We rarely do much.
It's a great way.
It's really tough to move anything there. So if I were in a normal league with normal kinds of people, I would be looking probably to move out of 104 unless I was really in love with one of those receivers. And I'm really not at this moment, but we would see. 204, I think I'm kind of with you in that I don't think I'd go running back there. I think I would actually, speaking of Superflex, I would pick one of those, Ty Simpson, Garrett Nussmeier kind of guys, just as it's on spec there, because if they hit, they're going to hit.
Simpson's going to go 106, 108 in our draft. So
yeah. Yeah, so if I don't take him at 104, I'm not going to get him. So it'd be whoever's left over at 204. Very good chance none of these quarterbacks I want are there. But then that means I get, Casey Concepcion or Jadarian Price or somebody who can make a difference there. The problem for me is that was exactly the kind of attitude that made me get no quarterbacks in the startup draft. It's like, well, there's a much better value right here in another position. You do that 5 times, and suddenly you have no quarterbacks.
For a reason, man. You gotta play the format. You gotta let everyone else, they're scooping up those sexy players, and it never feels good. Like in that startup draft where I was taking CJ Stroud in like the second round, it's like it never feels good. But that's how I play it.
Yeah, it's great advice. I know exactly what your format is, where the scores are, what you need for the lineup, and draft accordingly. Don't just assume that it's going to operate like any other league does. Well, man, this has been outstanding. Thanks so much for hanging with me all morning here. Alan, remind everybody where they can find you and the exciting thing you got coming up this week.
Yeah, so the Channel 87 on SiriusXM or on the app, we're going to be doing a Dynasty Hour, right, from 1 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday for the next 3 months. It's going to be a nice little 3-month show. And then if you follow on X, I'm at Alan _ I'm an underscore now, Seslowsky. I had Alan Seslowsky, but it was hacked. I was part of the big conspiracy to kill fantasy football, and they got me. But now I'm an underscore. So, I'll post everything there. And then obviously the RotoWire YouTube page, I help manage all the video content there. So I'm always around. And man, come say hello. Always welcome to talk to people that love Dynasty fantasy football. I'd
love to do it. I think it's exciting that you've got this show coming up, and anytime I can make it happen.
You're the man, and you do a great show. You're a great host. You make it an enjoyable experience. It's a long damn experience. Who knew about the 2-hour podcast?
Yeah, no.
I thought I was in for a 1-hour show here. Oh my God, Jeff. But it's all right. You're a good hang, so I don't mind.
All right. Well, thanks, Ed, and thanks to everybody for watching or listening on your favorite podcast platform. Please please subscribe, do all that stuff. The best thing you can do to help our show grow right now is go over to Apple Podcasts, drop a 5-star rating and a nice review about us, and we will see you next week with another episode of Dynasty Compass.